Pompeii woke up believing it had another day. It didn't. Pompeii. In the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, life in Pompeii once unfolded in vibrant color. Merchants called out in the crowded forum, children chased one another through narrow stone streets, and the scent of freshly baked bread drifted from small family ovens. The city laughed, traded, loved, and dreamed, never imagining that everything could end in a single day. This is not just the story of a ruined city. This is the story of a single pair of eyes that saw it all. My name was Marcus Atilius. I was a citizen of Pompeii, a husband, a friend, an ordinary man in an ordinary city. And this is what I remember. It was the morning of the 24th of August. The sun was already bright, climbing over the terracotta roofs and whitewashed walls, casting warm golden light across the forum. It felt like any other summer day, hot and heavy with the smell of dust and olives. I woke to the clatter of wheels on the street outside and the distant murmur of voices. My wife, Livia, stood by the small window, tying her hair back with a strip of linen. Light spilled over her, turning the edges of her hair to bronze. "Don't forget," she said without looking at me. "We're invited to dinner with Flavius and his wife tonight. He'll be offended if you disappear again." I smiled, still half asleep. "I won't disappear. Not this time. You have my word." At that moment, my world was so small, so simple. My home, my wife, my work, the crowded streets of Pompeii. I thought the most important thing that day would be whether I found good fish in the market or whether Flavius would talk too loudly over the wine. None of us knew that the clock was already counting down. Outside, the city was alive. Vendors unfolded their awnings, shouting prices for figs and olives, fabrics and pottery. Dogs barked. A cart rolled by, pulled by a weary donkey. Somewhere someone laughed too loud, already drunk before midday. This was Pompeii, busy, noisy, and very much alive. But beneath that life, something had already begun to change. A few days earlier, we had felt small tremors in the ground, just a shiver under our feet. Clay jars rattled, dust slipped from the ceiling. We joked about it. "The mountain is stretching," an old man in the forum had said with a grin. "It's just Vesuvius yawning." We did not understand that the mountain was not yawning. It was waking up. As I walked through the forum that morning, I noticed it again, a faint vibration under my sandals, a tiny unsettled movement, like the earth itself was breathing faster. I paused and looked toward Vesuvius. There, above the green slopes and vineyards, a thin column of smoke rose from the summit. That alone was not unusual. The mountain often smoked like that, breathing out pale wisps that dissolved into the blue sky. But this smoke was different, darker, thicker. It rose straight upward, like a spear thrust into the heavens. A vendor beside me, arranging baskets of fruit, followed my gaze and frowned. "That's no morning mist," he muttered. The ground shuddered more strongly then, a brief, sharp tremor. People stopped for a heartbeat. A few glanced at the mountain. A dog whimpered and crawled under a cart. Then someone laughed it off, and the moment passed. We were used to small quakes. We were Romans. We believed we understood the world. We were wrong. Historians today know that deep beneath us, magma was rising, pressure building inside Vesuvius, turning the mountain into a weapon. But we did not know that. We had no words for what was coming. We only had our markets, our homes, our plans for dinner. By midday, the heat was oppressive. The air felt heavy, thick, as if it resisted every breath. I remember standing outside a bakery, accepting a small loaf still warm from the oven. The baker's face shone with sweat. "Too hot today," he grumbled, wiping his forehead. "Even for summer." As I handed him a coin, the world split open. A sound tore through the sky, like thunder, but deeper, fiercer, as if the gods themselves had shouted in anger. People flinched, hands flying to their ears. The ground shook violently, throwing some of us to our knees. Somewhere glass shattered, pottery fell and smashed. A woman cried out. I looked up at Vesuvius. The smoke was no longer a column. It was a monstrous, boiling cloud, dark and thick, hurling itself into the sky. Lightning twisted inside it, flashing purple and white through the darkness. The cloud rose and rose, branching out at the top like a pine tree. What later writers would name the Plinian Column. But in that moment, it was simply terrifying. Ash began to fall. At first, it was just a light dusting, soft gray flakes drifting down like snow. A child laughed and reached out to catch them. Someone joked that the gods had decided to cover Pompeii in flour. Then the ash grew thicker. Within minutes, our dark hair and tunics turned pale. The streets vanished beneath a thin gray layer. People coughed, waving the air in front of their faces. The sky, once blinding blue, began to fade to a sickly yellow, then to a dim, smoky gray. A soldier climbed the steps of the basilica and shouted to the crowds, "Return to your homes, do not panic. This is only a passing disturbance." A passing disturbance. Behind him, the sky boiled. I did not believe him. Fear had already wrapped a cold hand around my heart. I ran. All I could think of was Livia. Our house was not far, but every step felt slower, the air thicker. Ash stung my eyes and scratched at my throat. People were beginning to shout, to run, to push past one another in the streets. A clay pot crashed beside me, shattered by the shaking of the earth. A dog barked wildly, straining against its tether. I reached our door, flung it open, and stepped into the dim, familiar coolness of our home. "Livia!" I shouted. "We have to leave, now!" She turned toward me, eyes wide, a shawl already in her hands. Even inside, ash floated through the open window like ghostly snow. "What's happening?" she asked. I grabbed a small bag, my hands shaking. "The mountain has erupted. Look outside. We can't stay here." She did not argue. That was one of the things I loved about her. She trusted me, even when I barely trusted myself. We wrapped cloth over our mouths and noses, trying to filter the air. I helped her gather a few small things, too few as it turned out. A ring, a folded piece of cloth, a small carving of a household god. We left everything else behind. Furniture, clothes, the little treasures of our life. We stepped back into the street and into another world. The ash was already ankle deep, soft and treacherous. Each footstep sank, dragging at our legs. The sky had grown darker, a swirling mass of gray and black. Daylight faded into an unnatural twilight, then into something like night. People staggered through the streets, faces white with ash and fear. Some carried bundles, children, cages with birds. Others wandered empty-handed, stunned, as if they had stepped into a nightmare from which they could not wake. We joined a stream of people moving toward the city gates. Ash fell steadily, a constant whispered rain. Every breath burned. "Where will we go?" Livia asked, her voice muffled by the cloth. "To the harbor," I said. "If the gods are kind, the ships will still be there." Behind us, another explosion rattled the sky. The sound rolled over us like a wave. A few people screamed. A piece of roof tile slipped from above and shattered in the street. To survive, you do not think deeply. You do not plan or calculate. You move. One step, then another. You follow the crowd because the crowd feels like safety, even when it is only shared terror. Historians now believe that while we struggled through those streets, the column of ash and gas above Vesuvius was rising kilometers into the sky, its weight finally beginning to collapse, sending deadly surges down the mountain slopes. We did not see that. The ash curtain hid the mountain from us. All we saw was darkness. By the time we reached the city gate, the ash was up to our calves. People coughed and spat, wiping gray slime from their lips. A man stumbled beside me, his chest heaving with violent coughs. When he turned his head, I saw blood on his teeth. "I can't breathe," he gasped. He fell. Someone tried to help him up, but he did not move. After a few desperate attempts, they had to let him go. The crowd pushed forward. Survival is a cruel master. Beyond the walls, the road sloped downward toward the sea. From there, normally, we would see the glittering line of the water, busy with ships in the Creek of Mass. That day, the horizon was swallowed by smoke. We half ran, half stumbled down the road. I held Livia's hand so tightly my fingers ached. Ash shifted underfoot like sand. Every breath was a battle. My lungs burned. My eyes watered constantly, tears carving pale lines through the gray powder on my face. At last, the harbor came into view. It was chaos. Dozens, maybe hundreds of people crowded along the waterfront, shouting, pushing, begging to board any ship still tied there. Some boats had already left, pushing out into the dark, roiling water. Others strained against their ropes as desperate hands tried to climb aboard. "Over there," I said, pointing to a smaller boat that had not yet pushed off. We ran, slipping in the ash. A man in a stained tunic stood on the boat, beating away hands with a pole. "No more," he shouted. "We can't take any more. We'll sink." "Please," a woman cried, lifting a small child toward him. "Take my boy. Take him." He hesitated, then grabbed the child and pulled him aboard. The mother reached after him, but the boat was already drifting away, pushed by strong arms with long oars. Her scream followed them out into the blackening sea. Livia squeezed my hand. "Marcus, what do we do?" I looked at the water, at the boat shrinking into the dark, at the sky that seemed to press down upon us. The sea was no refuge. Ash fell upon it too, spreading a gray skin over the waves. Lightning flickered within the volcanic cloud, reflecting in the restless water. "We can't stay here," and I said. "The harbor is a trap. If the ash gets thicker, we'll be buried." Behind us, the city loomed, half hidden behind curtains of falling ash. "Where then?" she whispered. It is strange the choices we make when we do not truly understand the danger. Some fled toward the fields, thinking to outrun the disaster. Some hid in their homes, convinced their walls would protect them. Others, like us, hovered between options, torn between earth and sea, between the familiar and the unknown. We turned back toward the city. By then, the ash was pouring down like a storm. The sky was almost black. Only a dull, sickly glow remained along the horizon, where the sun still fought to exist. Thunder rolled again, not from clouds, but from the mountain. As we climbed the road back toward Pompeii, the earth trembled beneath us. In the distance, faintly, we heard a new kind of sound, a deep, rushing roar, like 1,000 chariots charging at once. We did not yet know it, but that was the first pyroclastic surge, a burning cloud of gas and ash racing down the mountain at terrifying speed, incinerating everything in its path. It did not reach Pompeii immediately. It destroyed other towns first, places closer to the volcano. But its breath was already upon us in the form of heat, of pressure in the air, of the growing sense that the world itself had turned against us. The streets of the city were almost unrecognizable when we returned. Ash reached our knees now. Bodies lay half buried where they had fallen. An old man curled on his side, a dog still straining at its chain, its fur gray and stiff. We forced ourselves onward, step by dragging step. "Marcus," Livia said softly, "what if we don't make it?" I stopped and turned to her. Her face was a pale mask, only her eyes still their warm, familiar color. "We will," I said, though I did not believe it. "We have to." She nodded once. That was all. Historians who study Pompeii today can see our final hours preserved in ash and plaster. They know where people tried to flee, where they hid, where they fell. They can trace our panic in the direction of our bodies, in the way our hands reached out for each other. To them, it is evidence. To us, in that moment, it was fear and love tangled together. Another shock shook the city. A section of wall collapsed nearby with a thunderous crash, sending a cloud of dust and ash into the already suffocating air. Somewhere, a woman screamed until her voice broke. We took shelter in the doorway of a building, just for a moment, pressing close to the stone as the ash poured down. "I can't see," Livia whispered. "It's too dark." I looked up. She was right. It was not just ash now. It was night. The sun had vanished completely, smothered by the volcanic cloud. Only occasional flashes of lightning gave us brief, terrible glimpses of the world around us, of faces streaked with tears and ash, of hands clutching at loved ones, of statues of God standing silent and helpless. "How can it be so dark?" she asked. "Because the sky has fallen," I said before I could stop myself. We moved again. To stand still was to be buried. We reached a small open square, barely recognizable under its blanket of ash. A group of people huddled together there, some praying aloud, some screaming at the gods for mercy. One man stood apart, his voice rising above the others. "This is the anger of the gods," he shouted. "We are being punished for our sins. Repent, and they may yet spare you." No one listened. In the face of such terror, words shrank. Prayers and curses alike were swallowed by the roar of the mountain. The heat grew worse. At some point, we realized that the ash underfoot was no longer cool. It burned through the soles of our sandals. The air itself felt like it was on fire. Every breath scorched our throats. Another roar rolled over the city, closer now, deeper, as if a giant were inhaling behind the walls. Livia stumbled. I caught her, pulling her against me. "I'm so tired," she murmured. "My legs, I can't." "You can," I said. "Just a little farther. There might be a cellar, a stronger house, somewhere we can wait it out." Wait it out. As if this were a storm that would pass by morning. We turned toward a larger house, one of the wealthier homes with thick stone walls and an internal courtyard. The door stood half open, ash piled against it. Inside, shattered lamps and fallen beams testified to the quakes. We pushed our way in. There were others already there, a small group of strangers, faces hidden behind cloths, huddled together near an inner wall. Someone had a lamp, its flickering light casting long, trembling shadows. "Is there room?" I asked. A man nodded, eyes hollow. "We're all dead anyway," he said quietly. "Sit where you like." We sank down beside the wall. Livia leaned her head against my shoulder, her breasts shallow and ragged. The lamp sputtered as ash filtered into the room through cracks and gaps. The air grew thicker, hotter. Outside, the roar continued, sometimes seeming to recede, then swelling again like a great flame being fanned. In those final moments, there was little left but thought. I thought of our home, our neighbors, the ordinary mornings and quiet evenings I had once taken for granted. I thought of dinners with friends, of jokes shared over wine, of small annoyances that now seemed laughable in their insignificance. I thought of the life we might have had if the mountain had slept one more day. "Marcus?" Livia whispered. "Yes? If this is the end..." She trailed off, swallowing hard. "If this is the end," she said again, "I'm glad I'm with you." My throat closed. I couldn't answer, not at once. Finally, I managed. "And I with you." She smiled faintly, even through the ash. The roar outside changed. It deepened, gathered, rose to a terrible, all-consuming howl. The final pyroclastic surge had begun. It raced down the mountain at unimaginable speed, hotter than any furnace, dense and deadly. The air in the room grew suddenly, brutally hotter. The walls trembled. Somewhere nearby, something heavy collapsed with a tremendous crash. Livia gripped my hand. I wrapped my arms around her and held on as tightly as I could. There was no more running. There was only the blazing rush of air, the crushing heat, the sensation that the world itself was being torn apart and hurled down upon us. And then, silence. Centuries later, archaeologists would uncover our city. They would find our bodies encased in hardened ash, our final poses captured forever. They would pour plaster into the hollow spaces and reveal our shapes. A man and a woman, clinging to each other against a wall, faces turned away from the oncoming fire. To them, we would be a study, a subject, a photograph in a book. To us, in that last instant, we were simply Marcus and Livia, two souls who had loved and feared and hoped, caught in the path of a sleeping giant's awakening. Today, visitors walk the streets where I once walked. They step on the same worn stones, pass the same doorways, look up at the silent shape of Vesuvius on the horizon. They peer into the plaster casts of those who died and wonder what their names were, what their lives were like, what they felt in those final moments. Now you know one of them. I was Marcus Atilius. I lived in Pompeii. I woke on what seemed like an ordinary morning, kissed my wife, and stepped out into a day that would become my last. Our city was buried, but not erased. Our voices were silenced, but not lost. They remain in the stones, in the ash, in the stories told centuries later. And as long as someone remembers, as long as somewhere a voice says, "This is what happened, this is who they were," we are not entirely gone. So when you think of Pompeii, do not think only of ruins and empty streets. Think of us, the people who walked those streets, who laughed and argued and planned for a future they never reached. Think of a man running through falling ash, calling his wife's name. Think of a woman who chose to stay at his side, even when the sky itself fell. Think of a city that lived fully, beautifully right up until its final breath. This was our last day, and now it is your story to remember.